I'm Dan Turner. You can follow me at EagleDanFF on Facebook. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Felicia.
Felicio.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, whatever.
It's a family-friendly show, so watch it.
I didn't say that.
Uh-huh.
You can follow him at GManJ. Jay, how did your fantasy teams do this week?
So overall, a little better. I won in SFBX, which we did not plan this, but both representing the Scott Fish Bowl with our shirts this week. Overall, had a pretty solid week, but the league that's most important to me is my home league, the one I was telling you that I lost Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, and A.J. Brown. Well, I also happen to have Saquon Barkley, and also I picked up Paris Campbell. So it was pretty rough. I went from being the favorite to scoring the lowest points 2 weeks in a row. So that's pretty rough. But I'm not giving up. I picked up Joshua Kelly, who hopefully can help out and turn things around a little bit. So we'll see. How about you? How'd your week go?
Pretty much every single league that matters, I lost.
Yeah, that's always a good thing.
Every single one. In my home league, which is the most important, I had Barkley, and he got me 3.6 points, I think.
Yeah.
Not that would have mattered because my opponent scored almost like 200, so he blew me out either way. But still, it was just such a horrid week for fantasy purposes.
A horrid week for injuries, man. Unreal. I've never seen anything like it. I've been playing fantasy since the early 2000s, and I can never remember a week like this. I don't know, like we were talking about last week, because there was week one, because there was a decent amount of injuries. I don't know if it has to do with the lack of preparation from having to deal with COVID and the limited off season, but to have the number one overall guy, the arguably number two consensus guy go down for the whole year, it's just, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like what you just said, it was pretty much a word for word repeat of last week.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, honestly, to me. You have just so many, and not even like second tier guys, like first round picks,
right?
That just are gone. They just don't exist in fantasy for this year anymore. It's startling to me how bad it's gotten, and we're only in week 3.
Yeah,
you pretty much have half the first round is just Barkley's gone, McCaffrey's gone for a couple weeks. It's incredible to me.
Yep, absolutely. Well, speaking of injuries, how about old Tyrod Taylor with his punctured lung? Have you heard of anything like this in your entire life?
I mean, if I didn't see the news reports, I think you were making this stuff up, because it's impossible that, especially like this must be like this year obviously isn't like the best year for obvious reasons, but I swear to God, man, like you can't make this stuff up. You just can't.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's just I tell you what, it really seems like Herbert might have hired somebody, because for something like this, I was reading about it, and they say it's really hard to do, with your ribs protecting you, both the muscle itself and the bone. I mean, He had to jab that thing in there for that to happen. So
yeah.
It's 2020 in a nutshell. It's pretty much what we've come to expect.
In case anyone doesn't know what's going on, Tyrod Taylor is out for a couple of weeks because his team doctor was giving him a shot and accidentally punctured his lung. So that's what we're talking about, in case anyone wants to know. And no, we're not kidding. That actually happened.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe so. We've already got a question. We'll go ahead and hop in there. Tyler Reynolds wants to know, Laviska Shenault over under 100 yards tonight, and how many catches?
So if he's talking about 100 yards total, then I'll go over.
Okay.
I'd say since Shark isn't playing, I give him maybe like 6-7 catches.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, I definitely agree on the combined. I don't know about if we'll get over 100 receiving yards. I'm going to give him. I'm going to go bold here. I'm going to go double-digit catches. I think he's going to get a lot. I think he's going to get a lot of dink and dunk. They're going to play him all over the field. I think he's going to get it combined. I might not get the yardage, but I could see him getting a touchdown, double-digit catches, and I think he's going to have a big game. I think the world is going to see that it's Visca season now. So, yeah, my boy Bo talking about both Herbie season and Big Visca season. So
Mm-hmm.
that goes perfect into we're going to start talking about my 10 things to know about week 3. And my number one thing is now the Justin Herbert era. And I tell you what, I don't know if this is going to be a trivia question one day, talking about him and how he got his first start, because you could see it. They showed it on the feed where the coach comes up to him and says, "Hey, you're in." Because Tyrod was sitting there on the bench, ready to go, and he really played well for getting thrown in at the last minute, going up against the Super Bowl champions. You got Patrick Mahomes on the other sideline. He did well. He went 22 of 33, threw for 311 yards. He threw a touchdown. He did throw a pick. And he also rushed a little bit. He had only 18 yards, but he added a rushing touchdown. He had some rookie mistakes. It's expected. That one play that was pretty big where he tried to go for the big play. He was trying to go cutthroat, and he should have just ran for the first down. But that's the type of things that's going to happen with a rookie. But I think he looked great. Anthony Lynn claims that Taylor's still going to be the starter when he's healthy. But if he keeps playing like this, there's no way that he could go back to Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
If he's consistent, I think he could be a bye week replacement, or in deeper leagues and super flex leagues. If at this level, he could be a quarterback too. What do you think?
Yeah, I was honestly shocked about how well he played. The reports coming into the draft saying he maybe wasn't as quite ready to his NFL action as some of the other guys. But I think that this Anthony Lynn thing is a joke, to be honest, because if you're there's no way you're spending a pick that high on him and then not playing him over Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah. And Bo says that in the chat perfectly. Lynn's got to say that right now. He's got the veteran Taylor, who I think he said that knowing that there's no chance that he was going to play. I hope so, at least. I hope he's not that dumb. He's obviously an NFL head coach. So that's not saying much, Adam Gase, but otherwise, I think he knew what he was doing. I think that he knew Taylor wasn't going to be ready, and that he's kind of given himself a back door that if Herbert starts to struggle, then he's got the confidence. He's not getting benched. He said, "Well, Taylor was a starter anyway, when he was healthy." So I think he's playing it smart. It may sound dumb to all of us, but I think that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I just think in general, like the head coaches have to be realistic of where they're at. It's the Chargers are in the same division as the Chiefs. They're realistically they're not going to win the Super Bowl. They just aren't. So I think it would behoove them to give Herbert as much pro experience as possible.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
even if he struggles, it would be a mistake to go back to Taylor.
Yep, completely agree. You're not going to go anywhere with Taylor. And Troy's talking too. The Chargers' weapons. With Herbert and stock up for Mike Williams, for Keenan Allen, for Hunter Henry, and even to the other rookie that is my second thing for the 10 things to know, old Joshua Kelly, and I think he's a great start this week. He is going up against the Panthers, who have given up the most points to opposing running backs when it comes to fantasy. Looks like they want him to be the Thunder to Austin Eckler's Lightning. I don't think anybody realistically thought that Eckler was going to get all the touches. They were always going to have somebody else for the first and second downs and sprinkle in Eckler. I still think Eckler's the guy. I think he's the 1A to Kelly's 1B, but Kelly scored over 12 points both weeks. He had a touchdown in week 1, and he had a combined over 100 yards in week 2. He had 64 yards rushing and 49 yards receiving. And he's getting the goal line touches, which we know in fantasy that's the most valuable thing. He's got 8 red zone opportunities to Eckler's 5. He's playing almost 40% of the snaps, and he's getting the ball over 60% of the time when he's in. So, excuse me, he's gonna get in there, and he's gonna get the ball when he's in there. So I think he's a rock solid running back too. And if things get ugly quick with the Panthers with no CMC, I think Kelly could be an RB1, even potentially the RB1 if he's lucky enough to get into the end zone a few times.
Yeah, I thought being a 4th round pick, he wasn't going to be as good as he currently is. I know that people were tabbing him for the Melvin Gordon role early on, but it's shocking to me, especially the goal line carries, how the coaching staff is trusting that to get the job done, and he's proven them right. He's getting the tough yards, and he's turning out to be a perfect complement to Eckler. So
absolutely. And I'll be honest, I wasn't really in on him in the offseason. I saw a lot of people talking about him. Probably hear my 1-year-old screaming out there. I wasn't that in on him, but I think it's a perfect example of things change so quickly, not only in the NFL but also fantasy. You have to be able to adapt and change your opinion and see what's right in front of you. If you get stuck, dig your heels to the ground and say, well, I wasn't in on the guy, so I want nothing to do with him, you're going to miss out on a lot of guys. So I was able to pick up Kelly in my league that I had Barkley, and I'm excited. I think he's got the potential to, he's not going to replace Saquon Barkley, but I think he's going to put me in a spot to at least compete. And I think he's a good option for those who lost a running back with all the crazy injuries of the past 2 weeks. That you can plug in as a RB2 who's still, if things keep going this way, he's still going to have some upside.
Agreed.
So with number 3, I say that you need to sit all your Texans this week. Things have not been pretty without DeAndre Hopkins. The only person that thinks that it would probably be better without DeAndre Hopkins is Bill O'Brien. But anybody with common sense would know that if you lose a guy like Hopkins, things are going to be rough. And then they go to Pittsburgh to play who I think is the best defense in the NFL. They're only giving up 18.5 points a game. They're one of 2 teams that has double-digit sacks. They got 3 picks, and they are only allowing 305 yards of offense per game. Watson, his touchdown to interception ratio is only 2-2. I do think they're going to turn it around eventually, but it's not going to be against the Steelers. In SFBX, I'm starting the man of the hour, Gardner Minshew, over Watson. If you got another viable option, I would sit all the Texans, including David Johnson, Brandon Cooks. Will Fuller's probably the only guy that if you're willing to go for the boom bust, that's what you're doing with Will Fuller. So you have to have that expectation. He's probably the only guy that I would still be comfortable because you're going in expecting, you might get 30 points, but you might get 0 too. So what are your thoughts?
I think that Deshaun Watson should file a malpractice suit against his head coach.
Yeah.
That's honestly what I think.
NGM, because that always works out well.
Yeah. I mean, to trade Hopkins for David Johnson, just incredible. And, he's always had offensive line issues. I mean, it's not really fair to say that Hopkins made him, but obviously to lose a weapon of that caliber,
sure.
I mean, he's just not going to be as good of a quarterback. It just isn't going to happen. So I think that it's a good call to go with Minshew over him this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Watson's got the talent to elevate the guys around him, but I love Brandon Cooks. He's one of my favorite players in the league, but he's a one-trick pony. He's going to get I kind of feel like him and Fuller kind of negate each other. And Cobb, I do like him in PPR leagues as a bye week fill-in. He's somebody that we've talked about where he was going. He was a good value, but he's not somebody who's got the upside. They don't have that alpha dog anymore. That's what they lost when they traded Hopkins for peanuts. But that's Bill O'Brien for you.
Yeah. I'm surprised that Cobb isn't getting, more targets than he is.
Yeah.
They have a supremely tight end that's, elite. He don't have a Kittle or Kelsey or something. So it's shocking to me how little they're actually using him.
Yep, absolutely. Thing number 4 was I went with an awesome dad joke. Is that everybody loves a free sample. Old Drew Sample stepped in for Uzomah when he got hurt, and Uzomah, man, he was looking good last week, and he's been doing really well, but he blew out his Achilles tendon. He's out for the year. Sample stepped in and got 9 targets. He got 7 catches and 45 yards. So it's nothing, he didn't go crazy. He got 11 points, but that is like the prototypical tight end 1 line. 5-6 catches, 40 something yards, and then if you get a touchdown, you're tight end 1. So it's not like he's going to be a week in, week out, plug and play. He's a starter, but I think in the right matchups, he's a perfect streamer. And luckily he goes against your Eagles, who have been a very fantasy-friendly matchup to the tight ends. They're giving up the 5th most fantasy points so far this season. They allowed a touchdown to Logan Thomas in week 1, and then Tyler Higbee blew up last week. for 3 touchdowns. So I think Sample is somebody who you can definitely stream this week, and it's a good start.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to my thing, we have a question from Jeff on Facebook. Jared Goff versus Gardner Minshew is a second QB in Superflex. I'd go Minshew. I
believe
think
so too.
it's going to be a shootout. He has good weapons. He has Visca, Cole, even if Shark doesn't play. I think
Shark's out.
Yeah, Shark's out. So I think that he would be the one over Goff in that situation.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Simple. In your article, you said that you don't think he's going to be a TE1 week to week, and I sort of disagree. I think that it seemed in the game that at one point he had like 6 straight targets or something. Burrow would just keep finding him and finding him. I mean, he's a good athlete. He's an early round pick. So if he keeps getting that, I don't think that target is sustainable. But if he gets anywhere near that consistently, then I think he could definitely go into the upper echelon of tight ends week to week.
And you make a good point. Burrow has targeted the tight end position 21% of the time, so it's definitely something that they say rookies target tight ends early in their careers. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but in this case it is. And like you said, if he's not going to throw it at he have 60 throws, 60 attempts this past week.
61.
Yeah, it's not going to happen every week, but if he continues to throw the ball 20% of the time towards the tight end position, back end tight end 1 is something I could definitely see happening. Mm-hmm. We have another question from William Scully. Thoughts on Robinson, Chubb, Mixon, or OBJ PPR for this week? Pick 3. So the first thing that sticks out to me, Chubb and Mixon are definitely getting started. I think Chubb it's the type of game that is perfect for him game script wise. They shouldn't have any. Granted, it is the Browns, but against the Redskins, I definitely think that they should be able to run the ball pretty well and try to control the game. Mixon, I'm not giving up on Mixon yet. I think he's going to be just fine. So it's between Robinson and OBJ. Robinson seems like the safer play to me, especially going up against Miami, but he doesn't have the ceiling that OBJ has. The only thing that gives me a little bit of reservation with OBJ is if you're already starting if you're already starting Chubb, starting OBJ too, you're kind of limiting your fantasy team's upside because, if Chubb scores a touchdown, OBJ is not going to, and vice versa. So I probably still lean OBJ just because of his upside. Everybody's still hating on him, but if you've watched the games I have, because I have Chubb on a lot of my fantasy teams, OBJ's look pretty good. Baker's being Baker and hasn't got the passes to him where giving him an open space where he can take it to the house. But I think the OBJ game is coming, and I would much rather risk starting him versus risk benching him and missing out on that blow-up game from OBJ.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go the other way. I think it's Robinson. I agree that OBJ probably has a higher ceiling, but he's just way too inconsistent for me to trust. And, but prior to week 1, we both didn't know who James Robinson was. And, he's getting the bulk of the carries now. And he's proven to be a really good lead back for Jacksonville. And with Shark being out, I think he's going to get more opportunities in the passing game. So for this week, I'd go Robinson.
Okay. All right. Well, we're split on it, Will. William will let you make that final call, but hopefully we can help you out with that. We've got another question on Facebook from Matt Dole. Think Dallas will keep targeting the tight ends with all the wide receivers they have? I'll let you start off with this one.
Yeah. I think Schultz knows how to get open. Dak likes throwing to his tight end. I know that they have Lamb in the slot most of the time and Gallup. But I think there's enough targets to go around that Schultz can still be viable as at least a low-end T1, high-end T2.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the benefit of having those wide receivers is teams are going to focus on them, and it's going to leave things wide open for Schultz. So, like you said, it's proven Dak likes to throw the tight end. So, I agree. I think I put him in kind of the same category as Sample, where back end tight end 1, high end tight end 2 with the right matchups can have some pretty good games.
Mm-hmm.
So what was next? We just went over old samples, and then my next thing was somebody else who's playing tonight. I think you need to buy low on Preston Williams. he's somebody who I have been in love with all off season. Him and Visca are my two guys that I have an undying love for, and it hasn't been too pretty for Preston Williams so far. But the first week one he was shadowed by Stephen Gilmore. Week two he was shadowed by Tre'Davious White. So I don't think there's just about anybody else that has had matchups that tough. Not only that, coming back from a torn ACL. So it's going to take some time. Anybody who thought that Preston Williams was just going to jump into this season and where he left off last year, you got to take into consideration not only the physical but the mental aspect of things, trying to get back into normal game speed and not worry about getting re-injured. He's got the highest snap percentage of any offensive player on the team, not named Ryan Fitzpatrick, at 85%. He's tied with Devontae Parker with 12 targets through 2 games. And he's came close to scoring a touchdown a few times. He dropped one that right on the goal line. He dropped it this past week. So I think if he would have caught that, or there was another play where he got out of bounds right at the 1, I don't think anybody would be worried about him. If he's available on waivers or if you can buy low, he's somebody that I'm trying to get everywhere. And he's got a good matchup tonight. I have no issues. I think he's a good start. I think he's a wide receiver 3 who, depending on how it goes, he could have a blow-up game as well.
All right, so I'm going to do 180, and I want absolutely no part of Preston Williams at all.
Well, you're an idiot, but
well, thank you. You said I agree with some things. He's getting targets, but he's not doing anything with them. He caught 3 balls out of 12 targets. He did drop when he does get opportunities. He dropped that touchdown pass. It was a drop.
Yep. That was a bad drop. I'll give you that. That was really bad.
He's losing snaps to someone called Isaiah Ford. I don't even know who that is. It's not like the Dolphins' offense is like this juggernaut to begin with, and he's just
got Ryan Fitzpatrick back there who's going to sling the ball. And you got to think too, even though he had 12 targets, 12 Ryan Fitzpatrick targets. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was catchable.
And I'll give him that he had tough matchups against the Patriots and the Bills, but he's had some opportunities and he just hasn't done anything with them. He's coming off an ACL, and I don't think people are making enough about that. ACL injuries, even the year after, are tough to get over. So I don't know if he's going to be 100% healthy until later on in the year. So I just don't want anything to do with him right now. I'll let someone else deal with it.
Again, you're an idiot, but you're entitled to your opinion, so that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But next thing we'll move on is somebody else that is struggling to begin the season. The 2018 Todd Gurley is not coming back. I know everybody was excited to see him go back. He played college ball at Georgia and going back to Georgia to join the Falcons. But I think everybody's realizing why the Rams decided to just cut bait. He's getting the touches. He's got 43% of the touches on 64% snap count. But he's just not producing. It's 3.3 yards per attempt. And he's only got 5 targets on the season. That's huge. In this pass-heavy offense, if he's not getting catches and he's struggling on the ground, where's his production going to come from? I do think that this is a good enough offense that he's going to have some he will have some big games when he's getting all the red zone touches, so he does get that. But I think he's really right now, he's just a borderline RB2 that if he's not getting in the end zone, it's going to be a disappointing week.
I'm honestly a little shocked that anyone expected 2018 Todd Gurley to be there at all.
Yeah, I think people got excited when they saw this offense. Look what this offense did for Austin Hooper. Granted, it's not a running back position, but anytime you think, the Falcons offense, you're thinking high flying, and as reports are, his arthritis isn't bad. We're going to manage his reps, but he's going to get all the handles, all the touches he can handle, and it's not there anymore.
Yeah, but he has arthritis. It doesn't get better or anything. I mean, he already had a high volume in his career. It's not like you're going to get better with age as a running back anyway. And with his knee problems, I mean, there was just no way he was ever going to get back to where he was a couple of years ago.
Yep, I would expect him anyway. I think I got him in one league, and that was because I got him. I think it was like the 4th round or something like that. So that was an instance where normally I wouldn't touch a guy, but you can't pass up value like that.
Yeah, no, but otherwise, I understand the offense he's in is a lot of points, but that's a passing offense. So
absolutely.
At all.
And we're going to talk about your favorite player, one Mr. Daniel Jones. I think people are cutting bait on him too quickly from a fantasy perspective.
Homer.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. This is not me being a homer. Yes, I'm a big Giants fan, but anybody who knows me knows that I am not biased when it comes to fantasy. You got to play with your head, not with your heart. But I think that people are just cut bait too early. Yeah, the Giants season's over, but it was over before week one. I didn't have high expectations. And one thing that everybody's always said is, this even though the team's going to suck, the offense does have potential. That potential took a huge hit when Saquon Barkley tore his ACL and Sterling Shepard got placed on the IR with turf toe. But he's still got some weapons. He's got Darius Slayton, who they've got an undeniable chemistry. You got Golden Tate, who he's old as dirt, but he can still produce. Evan Ingram and Devonta Freeman, and both Devonta Freeman and Dion Lewis can catch the ball. So he's still got some options. That defense is still terrible. And he put over 21 points up against the Steelers defense, who, like I said earlier, I think is the best in the league. So granted, he had a terrible game against the Bears, but the Bears have a solid defense. I think Daniel Jones isn't somebody to cut bait on yet, and you might be able to get him cheap. I think he's a perfect QB2 for Superflex leagues, where he's going to get you decent points, and in games where the Giants are behind, which is going to be pretty much every game, he's got plenty of garbage time potential. Where if he gets a couple of garbage time touchdowns, he could jump into that QB1 category.
Okay, now that the homer portion of the show is over with, in reality, Devonta Freeman is toast. If he wasn't,
he's made of glass. So I'll say that.
Until week 3, he would have been signed already.
Yeah.
The offense is Saquon Barkley. Without him, there's nothing. Yeah. There's no more stack boxes. They can play
nothing. I mean, Darius Slayton's a stud.
It's nothing. They can double Slayton, and that's pretty much it. I don't think anyone's really scared about Golden Tate.
Well, Evan Ingram, I mean, he's a playmaker.
Oh, is he? When he shows up?
Well, when he's healthy. But so knock on wood, he's healthy right now. So
that's what, 3 games a year? 2 games a year? It's about time for his injury, right? I can't.
Don't put that evil on him.
Yeah. So I'm not. No, Daniel Jones is not. No, I'd rather
interrupt you with your nonsense. We have a question from Facebook from Matt Dole. Will Freeman jump in and take over the RB spot, or will he just be a safety net behind Dion and Gallman? This is a backfield I don't want to touch. I think it's going to be all of them involved. If I had to pick anybody, I would say Dion Lewis, just because he's going to be the one that costs the least. I think Gallman, probably of anything, he'll have the valuable goal line touches, but I think Dion and Freeman are the ones that are going to be rotated in. I think it's going to be a mix of Freeman and Gallman on the early touches, and Dion Lewis is the pass catcher on third downs, and when they're playing catch up, which is going to be a lot. So that's why I lean Dion Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. This running back is just a mess. The room's a mess. I don't want anything to do with any of them. Maybe Dion Lewis PPR with like some flex appeal, but that's it.
Right. If you can get him for free, he's a decent, bye-week fill-in. But it's something I'm going to avoid.
Yeah.
So, moving on, another team that's been just ravished by injury, the Broncos. They still got some fantasy value as well. Drew Lock is done for a few weeks. Philip Lindsay's got turf toe as well. Cortland Sutton's done for the year, but even with Jeff Driscoll, I think they're going to have some value. Obviously, it's stock up for Judy, but people are sleeping on KJ Hamler. He's actually had a higher snap percentage than Judy in week 2, and had the same amount of targets. With his ability after the catch, he's a big play waiting to happen, and he's somebody that I'm happy to stash on my bench to see. He seemed to have a rapport with Driscoll, so he's somebody that I would keep an eye on. And I wasn't too high on Melvin Gord this offseason because I really thought it was going to be a 50-50 split. The way that Philip Lindsay was getting talked up, and Gordon so reportedly was having issues with the Denver Air. But with Lindsay out with turf toe, Gordon has got 80% of the 80% of the snap count, and he's averaging 16 points a game right now. Granted, it's only 2 games. But until Lindsay returns, I think he's a borderline RB1. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the Gordon take. With Lindsay out, he's going to get all the carries, so definitely keep him in there. I wouldn't worry about him too much. Judy with his route running, I think might even get an uptick, uh, considering if no Sutton, he could potentially be the wide receiver one for that offense now. So I think he gets an uptick. I think that's pretty much it. I don't really trust Driscoll a lot, and Hamler I think is a gamble. It's kind of like a Djax light. Like if you play him and he has a big week for you, then you're going to win the week. If not, you're probably going to get like up 1 point and lose.
Yep.
So I think he's definitely going to get more opportunities now. If you want to roll the dice on him, then go for it. But I think
it's not somebody I'm ready to throw in my lineup yet, but more of a bench stash that I want to see if he really does have a thing with Driscoll, and if he becomes a favorite of him, he's going to one that's going to get peppered with targets. I think one guy I didn't mention too. I think this really solidifies a decent floor for Noah Fant. He's already started off the season really well, and everybody was saying, well, when Sutton comes back, the targets might not be there. Well, unfortunately, Sutton's not coming back this year, so I think Fant is a rock solid tight end one, and somebody that if you got him, you can plug him in every week.
Agree there with Fant.
Moving on, we'll go to the Bills' backfield is going to be an absolute headache this year. I loved Devin Singletary last year. He's somebody I had a lot of. He was basically free, helped me out at the end of the year. And I kept him in my home league. He was a cheap keeper, and I normally don't do this. I give guys a chance, but I dropped him after week 1. It was obvious the way that they're going to use him is not going to be fantasy friendly. It's going to be good for the Bills. I think the Bills are going to win that division, but they're going to eat each other's value. Singletary's got the edge in carries, 19 to 17, snap percentage, 57% to 45%. He's got more points in him on the year, 19.9 to 15.4. But I think they're going to do just enough to eat each other's value. Moss is going to get the goal line carries. Singletary is going to get the work between the 20s. And you got Josh Allen there too, who can get it done on the ground. He's going to take some production away. He's the second leading rusher on the team right now with 76 yards. He's going to get some quarterback sneaks and some rushing touchdowns. So I'm there. You can use them as a flex play, and they'll probably have some big weeks. But good luck trying to guess which week one of them's going to have the big week. And they're just guys that I'm avoiding.
Yeah. Moss is supposed to be the guy at the goal line until Josh Allen runs it in. And Singletary is supposed to be the guy between the 20s until Moss gets a chance. Yep. So, it's just impossible. If anything, you just start Josh Allen for his rushing, and don't worry about the running backs because it's just going to be impossible to figure out when each of them is going to get the points. Like they're so evenly distributed and their skill sets are pretty similar. You got to be a psychic to figure out any given week which one's going to be the play.
Yep, absolutely. And my final thing is kind of an extension of what we talked about last week with don't panic. Take advantage of those who are panicking. There's plenty of guys that are 0-2 that have got guys that are underperforming. DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, A.J. Brown. I've seen many times where guys just rage drop and then trying to pick up the guys who they think are going to turn their season around. There was a couple years ago, Chubb's rookie year. He didn't start off that great. They had Carlos Hyde. He was taking all the production. One league I was in, Nick Chubb got dropped. I picked him right up, stashed him on my bench. As soon as he helped me win the championship that year. So make sure to not only pay attention to who was already available on the waiver wire, look and see who was dropped. You might have a league winning pickup and somebody you can stash on your bench.
I agree, especially in I've seen this a lot now in keeper leagues. If someone drafted in the middle rounds just rage quits on them and drops him, pick him up, stash him on IR or at the end of your bench. See if he can be a valuable keeper for next year. Yep. I just don't get these people that they have to sit down, take a deep breath, and think about what you're doing. Don't hit that button.
Yep. Absolutely. And one of my favorite guys in the industry, Jake Seeley, he's somebody who I've learned a lot from listening to over the years. He calls it the Greg Jennings rule. What would you rather do? Have a guy like, if you haven't been playing fantasy long enough to know who Greg Jennings is, he was like a Golden Tate, a guy who's going to get you 5-6 catches, 80-something yards, maybe a touchdown, but his ceiling is very limited. I'd much rather have a guy like Akers or Swift on the bench that has that league-winning potential. You're not going to start a Tate unless it's a bye week or you got an injury or something like that. Not very exciting. So you want to use your bench spots wisely on guys that are able to make that next step and become, guys who have league-winning upside.
Agreed.
We got another question. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you take this.
All right, don't steal your time, but will Herbert be the guy for the Chargers now, or will Tyrod get his job back?
Before you say that, do not apologize. Ask as many questions as you want. That's what we really want this to be. We want this to be, we've got our articles to talk about, but we want this to be an interactive show. So ask as many questions as you like. That's what we're here for. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll let you go ahead.
Unbelievable. I think we touched on it earlier. I mean, with the way Herbert was playing, if he could just continue that, there's really no upside to giving Taylor his job back. Simple as that. I mean, Herbert deserves the time, deserves to get the NFL reps, and there's a dog behind you.
It's also a cat, so nice try. But yeah, that's a Cookie cat.
Our first guest star.
Yeah, first guest on the show, Cookie. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that as long as he's not abysmal, I think it's going to be Herbert's job. I think that Lynn was smart. Everybody thinks he's an idiot, but I think he did that on purpose to leave the door open in case Herbert is terrible, that he says, well, Tyrod was the guy all along. It was just you were holding place while he was injured. So I do think that Herbert's going to keep it. I really like what I saw to be able to step in like that last minute, and produce. I think he's going to hold on to it.
You're excused. All right.
Well, it's an excuse for you, but
unbelievable. All right. So since everyone's injured, let's look at the top 10 rookies that most of us are probably starting now because all of our first round picks are ceasing to exist.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
all right.
funny. I'm not to put a jinx on anybody, but everybody, it was all about, the rookies won't be ready with COVID and the limited off season, and the rookies are showing out, man. Overall, man, they're doing well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Some even more than others. Like, it's crazy. So number one this week, it was close for this week, really close. Number one, CEH, still a top spot. He didn't get as many rushes this week, only got 10 rushes for 38 yards, but we finally got to see him in the passing game. He caught 6 balls for 32 yards. So I think if he can combine his week 1 rushing performance with his week 2 passing performance and put together a complete game, he's going to be there at running back 1, especially with all the running back injuries going into fantasy.
Yeah, I think as much as I love CEH, I think I would have probably bumped Taylor up there just because I think the Colts are smart and they're handing this backfield over to him completely. The only thing, I've been a CEH truther from day one. Before the Mac injury, CEH was my top rookie running back, but there's so many weapons in that offense. There's going to be games like this where, he had a solid game, but you've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Kelsey, you've got, week 1 you had Sammy Watkins, but there's so many mouths to feed in the Kansas City offense. The Colts, it's Taylor, and that's about it, especially with Paris Campbell going down. I think that for me, Taylor would be my number 1 guy.
Well, thankfully I don't have to listen to your opinion. But Taylor is my number 2 guy this week. And like I said, it was close. I think that he rushed the ball 26 times for 101 yards and a touchdown. If he repeats that, then he pretty much is going to have the top spot next week. I think, the Colts are dealing with some injuries themselves. So if he can keep out those rushing attempts and even throw in a couple of catches, then he's going to be the number 1 guy next week.
The Paris Campbell injury just killed me. I had him everywhere. I put him in every DFS lineup. I had all these wide receiver injuries. I picked him up as a replacement, and that was brutal.
You're like the Grim Reaper. Anyone that's in your lineup ends up dying.
Yeah, that's how it feels this season.
Yeah. So at number 3, a guy I was really impressed with, Joe Burrow. Had him at number 4 the week before. I think threw 3 touchdowns and 316 yards, albeit on 61 attempts. But the fact that he got the green light to throw that much speaks to the level of trust the coaching staff has in him. Sure. He's going up against the horrid Eagles defense this week that he should shred. We have absolutely.
What was that for defense again? Could you say that one more time?
It's terrible. It's not good.
Who though?
Unlike you, I don't have any delusions about my team, Mister Darren Dax to be a good quarterback.
Hey, I said that they're still going to suck. I just think he's going to have some fantasy production because our defense sucks so bad. So
But I think that he's going to have a huge game, and he can keep going. His schedule's pretty favorable the rest of the season, so we'll see how he does.
yeah, I agree with you there. I think Burrow's I think he's going to be rookie of the year. Honestly, AJ Green really hasn't even started getting yet. He's getting the targets, but he hasn't. He's still coming back from not even playing at all last year. So I think the sky's the limit for Burrow, and I agree. I think 3 is a good spot for him.
Of course, you agree. Number 4 is your boy, Laviska Shenault.
I'm telling you, he's going to go off tonight.
He is. I think without Chark being there, they're giving him some receiving work. They're giving him some rushing work. I think he's going to have a big game. He might become
3 for 30 and no touchdowns.
Yeah, right.
Not him up this much, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Number 5, we have James Robinson. I got to take an L on this one. I didn't.
And I'm right there with you. We both proved the man, and he's proven us wrong.
Yeah, he's definitely got that backfield by its neck, and he just produces. They give him the carries, and he does. He got a 100-yard game last week. They probably give him more carries, get some catches out of the backfield, and he's going to be there.
Yeah. So, it's so surprising, being in. Not that undrafted free agents don't produce, but when they have a plan for them, they do. But it just happens so fast, and they signed Ngumbawale, and then also Armstead. Feel like he's been on the COVID list for 16 years. He's still coming back, but I think Robinson's done enough that they're just going to keep feeding him. So, like you said, I take the L. I was wrong about him.
Yeah, it's definitely his job. Armstead isn't getting that job back.
Yep.
Number 6 is guy you talked about, Joshua Kelly. We said it before. He's in that Melvin Gordon role, and he's taking it and running with it.
Yeah.
Nothing much more to say about that. I mean, I expect him to produce going away the rest of the season.
Yep. And if I don't wish it on anybody, but if something were to happen to Eckler, he's shown the ability he can catch the ball. Kelly would shoot right up, man. I think he'd be up there. I think he'd be like a Jonathan Taylor Light. I think if he gets all that work, he could produce.
That's some high praise, JT Light. Damn. Number 7 is CeeDee Lamb. I think he's definitely a bona fide weapon in Dallas offense. He's going to give
him 88. They want him to be something big.
Yeah, he led the team in targets with 9 in week 2. 6 catches, 106 yards. He's just producing. He's in a great offense for his skill set. Dak likes him. I mean, you can plug him in, and he's going to produce for you.
Yeah.
All right. Number 8, we have a new member of the top 10, Chase Claypool. I'm not going to lie. I did not expect Claypool to be this impactful this early with all the other receiving weapons that Pittsburgh has. But he just smoked his defender down the sideline in week 2. He had 3 balls, 88 yards and touchdown. And he might, he's turning into something. I think he's the biggest receiver that can catch and has some speed. He'll do well there.
This is where I'm going to have to disagree with you. I like Claypool. I think he's got some potential. But he's going to be too boom bust for me to be this high on the list. He's still got Juju. He's still got Johnson. They clearly want to run the ball as well. I think he's a poor man's Deshaun Jackson at this point in his career. I think he's got potential, but to be in the top 10 of rookies for fantasy already, there's plenty of other guys who I would put ahead of him at this point, simply because I don't think he's going to have the targets to consistently produce like this.
I think Deshaun Jackson is the poor man's Deshaun Jackson at this point.
That's true.
I mean, well, agree to disagree because you're stupid.
I agree that you're an idiot, but that's fine.
All right, number 9, Jerry Jeudy. We talked about him a little bit.
I would put Jeudy ahead of Claypool, to be honest with you.
What was that?
I would put Jeudy ahead of Claypool.
All right, well, that's fair. I think that I just need to see how he produces with the backup quarterback. That's why I have him this low. I mean, if he can take over that Sutton spot, then I will gladly say that I was wrong and bump him up next week. But until the only reason I have him here is I just need to see how he does.
Yeah, I think there's some questions. Like I said, I really think there's going to be something between Driscoll and Hamler. So that's something to watch too, and as fans produce. So it's not going to be a high flying offense. So we're really going to have to pay attention to where the targets are going.
Yeah, number 10, I got DeAndre Swift. Unfortunately, he was drafted where running backs go to die in Detroit.
And then they signed Adrian Peterson.
It's not Adrian Peterson on top
He
of that.
really sense to me.
Kerryon Johnson on top of that, and I just thought he was going to be buried. But he turned into a really good PPR weapon. He had 5 catches for 60 yards. If he can take that primary receiving back role and run with it, then I think he has the upside to move up the list in the coming weeks.
I will definitely agree with you here. He's somebody that I'm really looking. Him and Cam Akers, are basically people are giving up on him, and they both, if they can get control of the backfield, they've got the talent to. People thought both of them were going to get drafted ahead of CEH, so I think that in the NFL draft, not fantasy drafts, but I think it's a good call on Swift. I think he's got the potential to move up this list as well if he can get some more of the work. Kerryon Johnson hasn't been the picture of health. Adrian Peterson, although he's a cyborg, he's also 175 years old. So who knows, if he's going to be able to last the whole season. So I think Swift's somebody who's a good target that's got some pretty big potential.
Absolutely. All right, we have a couple of viewer questions that were submitted before the show. I'll give this one to you. This is from Elton on Facebook. Would you take Matt Ryan or Gardner Minshew tonight or this week?
As much as I love Gardner Minshew, you got to go Matt Ryan here. Granted, Julio's banged up, but they're passing nonstop. He's got 3 weapons in Russell Gage, Julio, and Calvin Ridley. That any one of them can turn just a simple pass into a touchdown. Their secondary is hot garbage, and they're going to have to score to win. So as much as I love Gardner Minshew, I think he's a fine start. It's a good problem to have between Matt Ryan and Minshew, but I think you got to go Matt Ryan.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you here. If Chark was playing, it'd be a much harder decision.
And I was just about to mention that too. With no Chark,
it didn't. So with Matt Ryan and all his weapons, with Gage coming on, even if Jones is hurting, and Ridley, I think the offense is too prolific to pick Minshew over him.
Yeah.
The second one, this actually comes from you. Start 2, Preston Williams, Laviska Shenault, and Joshua Kelly in PPR.
Yeah, and this was a much tougher question before Chark was out. It's my home league that I'm having to replace a couple guys. I had Michael Thomas, Godwin, and A.J. Brown all out. So I need some and now I lost Barkley, so I've got to have somebody for the flex too. So I'm leaning towards Shenault. I'm definitely going to play Kelly. And now it was really between Shenault and Preston Williams, and now that Chark's out, I'm going Shenault. So,
yeah, I think I made my stance on Preston Williams perfectly clear, so I'm going Shenault and Kelly on this one. We have a question from Matt: Minshew or Watson?
I will answer that because I made that call in the Scott Fish Bowl this week, and I am starting Gardner Minshew over Watson. Watson's still probably got the higher ceiling, although Minshew's been red hot to start the season. You can't ignore the matchup and the way that Watson struggled this season. Minshew's got the Dolphins, who have a terrible defense, even though they made a lot of moves. And I think that as weird as it is to say this, I think that the Dolphins are going to be a force to be reckoned with the next year or two. They're not there yet. Watson's going up against one of the toughest, if not the toughest defense in the NFL. Who's not giving up a lot of points. So for me, it's got to be Minshew.
Agreed. I think we talked about Watson before, and the loss of Hopkins it seems to be almost too much to overcome for him. And Minshew's just throwing like his life dependent on it. So I'm going to go Minshew.
I do think Watson will be fine eventually, but it's taking some time to get his feet under him with getting used to not having Hopkins.
Yeah. All right. So this week's bad trade also comes to us from Facebook. This is an older one from 2017. This guy traded Todd Gurley for Marcus Mariota in a keeper league. So
Ooh.
I'm just going to go ahead and say, ouch.
Yeah, that's true. I will say, I think it was 2017. Mariota had that really tough stretch. I mean, really good stretch where everybody thought he was going to live up to his hype. He was on fire, so I could see where, maybe that move made sense at one time, but hindsight's 2020, and that's pretty bad.
It never made sense. You never trade a running back one like Gurley for any kind of quarterback like that.
And going back to the Minshew or Watson question, Matthew Bright does make a good point. Daniel Jones and Driscoll did have 2 touchdowns against the Steelers defense. So Watson, Watson's got the potential to have a solid game, and he's a good enough player to elevate the guys around him. But between the two, I feel like Minshew's got an easier path to have a better game.
Yeah, I mean, it's opponent too. Minshew's playing, a garbage team. So, right. I mean, you got to go to him.
Right.
All right, so Thursday night sleeper time. You can go first since you had such a big problem this week picking.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about the Dolphins and the Jaguars, slim pickings. But with Chark being out, it made things a lot easier. I'm going to go with Chris Conley. Minshew's been spreading the ball around. As we've said multiple times, the Dolphins' defense is not good. With no Chark, I think that Keelan Cole's been the most targeted receiver, and my boy Laviska Shenault, I feel like he's too big of a name at this point, even though as much as he's been hyped, as much as I love him, he's such a big name now. I don't feel like he's a sleeper anymore. But Chris Conley, I think he'd very easily wind up scoring a touchdown and getting a decent amount of catches. So he's somebody who, if you're in a stretch, if you need a flex in a deeper league, I think you could do worse. I think he could be a sneaky good game this week.
Yeah. I think for Christmas, I'm going to get you a book titled "What a Sleeper Actually Is." Yeah. I don't think you understand what the definition of the word sleeper.
It depends on the depth of the league. So I hate sleeper now because, to be honest with you, there really isn't any. That's part of it.
I'm going to go with Isaiah Ford. The states for Preston Williams is well documented. I think he had a really good game last week, 7 catches, 79 yards. So I think if he can keep that up, that he's going to be a good one. He might actually surpass Williams if he continues to drop wide open touchdowns.
We'll see. I think Preston Williams is going to have a touchdown tonight. So.
Well, I don't.
And Matt Dole on Facebook said, "Are the Vikings tanking for Trevor?" He put an LOL in there, so he's kind of half joking. But you know what? What do you think? Do you think if it implodes in Minnesota, you think they'd go for Trevor and try to move on from Cousins? How much longer does he have a contract for? I know he signed a short contract, didn't he?
I think it's either at the end of this year or next year. But if it's this year, then yeah. I mean, if they go 0-16, which is what it's going to have to take to get Lawrence, then sure, go get him.
Yeah.
He's
as quarterback needy as the league is, they could potentially move on from Cousins, especially on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, he's going to have to beat the Eagles and Giants to 0-16 first, but if they get there,
that won't be hard. So.
Yeah. All right, call your shot time. You're leading 1-0, unfortunately, in this. Last week we had running backs 12 points or more. Neither of us got it right. You picked Giovanni Bernard, and I had Devontae Booker.
And I was this close to hitting it. Gio had the touchdown. It got called back. Yes, it was the right call, but I wanted them to stick with the wrong call so I could have a 2-0 lead on you. But yeah, we both missed last week, so I'm up on you 1-0, and we have officially decided on what our bet is going to be year long. Whoever finishes with a better record is going to get to design the Twitter avatar for the loser, and they are going to have to continue to use that Twitter avatar from the start of the playoffs through the Super Bowl. So I hope you look forward to having a nice big picture of Eli Manning with his 2 Super Bowl rings.
Not even worried.
Twitter avatar.
I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do because it's so horrible.
J-Jaw, I already know. So
you don't know. It's not going to be J-Jaw. You're not good enough.
So for this week, we're going with tight ends for 10 points or more. And it can't just be for those who are tuning in for the first time. We're picking a different position and a different point threshold each week, and we're both having to pick a deep sleeper, somebody who we think that can come out of nowhere and hit that threshold. So it can't just be your big name. So I'll let you talk about your pick first.
All right, I'm going to go with Mo Cox, tight end for Indy. He had a really good game last week. So if he can get the start and perform, I think that he can do well.
I like that pick if Doyle is out. I did see that Doyle practiced today, so there's an outside chance. I don't think Doyle's going to play, but he did practice today, so
yeah, I think if he does, I think Cox can still put up the points.
Well, especially with no Paris Campbell, so that's definitely possible. My pick, Sean Sullivan said Eifert. I can't go with Eifert. He did have a decent game last week, but he's all the injuries have caught up to him. He's not what he could have been. Unfortunately, a few years ago he was a fantasy darling. I thought he was going to be something special, but he'll have a couple of tight end one games if he can catch a touchdown. But Minshew spreads the ball around too much. So I went with Jordan Akins, not Jordan Atkins, who
Sure. Be positive.
Yeah, I typed that on the show sheet wrong, but Jordan Akins, and simply like we were talking about, Deshaun Watson's still trying to figure out life after DeAndre Hopkins, and I think that he needs that security blanket, and that I thought Randall Cobb was going to be. But first game he didn't have a single. I don't think he had a catch. But even if he did, he didn't have much. He had a target. He didn't even have a catch. Second week Cobb was okay, but I think that he's got the shot. If he can catch a touchdown, I think he's going to have the typical tight end 4 or 5, 3-4 catches, 30-something yards. If you get the touchdown, you get over that double-digit threshold.
All right, good stuff. I think that'll about wrap it up for today. Join us next week where we'll have our first guest. I'm super excited about that. We're going to have our guest starting. So before we go, anything else you want to say, Jay?
Yep, I got 2 quick things. The one thing that I'm going to say every week, if you have a guy that's playing tonight, make sure you get them out of your flex. Put them in whatever starting position they're in. You don't want them clogging up your flex in case somebody winds up being a late scratch and you need the flexibility of having different positions start. And the last thing, make sure everybody knows Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James.
All right. 100% true.
Before we cut off, I like the Logan Thomas call as well from Matt Dole. That's a good one as well. I think that I actually was going to go with him, but our buddy Dan over here said that's not a deep enough sleeper, so I had to go with somebody else.
It's not a deep sleeper.
So that's all right. But I agree with the call, Matt. Appreciate everybody watching. If you have any suggestions for the show, shoot us a DM and let us know. I appreciate everybody watching.
All right. I'm Dan Turner. You can follow me at EagleDanFF. He is Jay Felicio. Follow him at GManJ. We are both writing for Going for Two, his 10 things and my rookie rankings. And everyone have a great week 3.
Have a good one, guys. Good luck.